All right, everybody, if we could grab our seats and get ready to begin. We have some time allotted for us to hear from all of you. I'm John Strand, Fargo City Commissioner. It's just a delight to have an opportunity to listen to our people, to hear from folks who have ideas and or concerns about climate issues. We may have concerns about climate actions or suggestions for action going forward. But most importantly, today's a day to hear from you. It's not to have us speak to the people. This is the people's house. And we have a new city hall here with new technologies, so this is one of our first runs at using this chamber to hear from all of you and to hear from folks who have concerns about something. I'm expecting we'll do absolutely more of that. So it's just an honor to serve, and it's a pleasure to listen and learn from people. There are folks who believe that there are climate issues going on, and there are folks that believe there's nothing to worry about. My thinking is let's hear what's on your mind, and if you have suggestions for action, by all means share that today so we can get an idea and gauge what our people's desires are. So the format will be simple. We have 3 minutes per person that will speak. We have podiums on either side that folks can walk up to address the audience. I suggest you say your name and where you're from, especially for our younger children attending. And by the way, it's just great that you're here. You are our future, but we don't need your addresses and your particular detail about where you're from and your location of where you live, because it's just not necessary today. There is a sign-up sheet over there if you'd like to stay involved and hear from us going forward. This is live streamed, so anybody watching on social media can catch this forum today as it's unfolding. It's also on cable access TV, so it will be repeating and cycling through those systems as well, so the voice of the people will be heard. And I just remind folks, turn your cell phone ringers off. I don't mind if you FaceTime or live stream, but have your ringers set down, and let's keep it decent. There's no reason to have anything but respect and proper decorum. If somebody, and I don't expect it, but if somebody starts getting it way out of hand, we'll shut the mics off. So it's that simple. Lastly, we have podiums and we have for you to speak, but there's some catch boxes going around. There's some blue. Can we hold that up over there so folks can see that Fargo catch box? There will be two of them floating around the audience. So if you don't want to go up to the podium to share your thoughts, raise your hand and let's all just be engaged to get the catch boxes to the people who want to speak, and the cameras will catch you there as well. So it's just a pleasure to have this discussion today. I'm not going to assume I know the things we will learn from all of you, but this is our chance to stand up, to show up, and to speak up for your thoughts, your concerns, and your best ideas going forward. I do see our mayor has popped in. Mayor Mahoney, if you'd like to say a few words just to greet people, or do you want to just... I know we have folks and we have others that will come and go through the meeting, but some have other commitments, so thank you for joining us, Mayor.
Commissioner Strand had this great idea, let's have a round table and kind of see what people think, and I'm very pleased a lot of people showed up because this is really important for our community and our city. So it really is a time to share, and that's what we wanted to have happen today. And I know many of you have been active in this environment and what's going on in the community. So feel free to talk about it. And this is a learning session for us, and we didn't know whether to do this as a commission meeting or just a brown bag or open meeting like today. So feel free to discuss this, and we're very much looking forward to what you have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. All righty, who would like to begin? Either go up to the podiums or raise your hands and catch the catch box. Would you prefer going up to the podium? Okay. Anybody want a catch box? They're floating around the room. You get them in your hands if you'd like. Okay. You sure can. I think they have something loaded up on a PowerPoint. tell us who you are, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, I'm Jake Lauer, and this is my wife Sonia Kay from South Fargo. What we're presenting is more of a proposal, a way to address climate change. We like to call it a sustainable housing development. It's a proposal for what to do in South Fargo and Valley View Estates. As a bit of background, we need to plan our neighborhoods differently due to climate change. We need to be able to come to a way to focus on sustainable development, specifically how to reduce our carbon footprint, promote green space, while making housing more affordable to live in. And what we're proposing is to take Valley View, this is a 41-acre plot in South Fargo, and make it a showcase for sustainable development in the state of North Dakota. Would be proposing a model community promoting geothermal heat and solar energy while maintaining a neighborhood of neighbors similar to Sensabaugh Edition next door and creating community green space. The details of what we'd be proposing would be to take Valley View Estates, which is 41 acres, and put 100 plots on it, similar density to the neighbors at Sensabaugh Edition, and also include planned green space. The covenants would have a front porch similar to Sensabaugh, so you have a neighborhood of neighbors. But in addition, you'd have geothermal heat for each house, and 6 kilowatts at least of solar energy, and south-facing roofs. When you build a house, you can pretty much put the roof facing any direction you want. If it faces south, then you're able to put in solar energy. The advantage of changing the community to be a solar and geothermal community is it would create a model community for sustainable living for the state of North Dakota, and Fargo specifically. It would help bring down the cost of geothermal heat and solar installation 2 ways. One, by installing these at the time of construction. That's the cheapest time to install them. In addition, you would be having 100 different houses for installing the geothermal heat and for installing solar installation. You would basically be creating jobs, creating an industry here in Fargo for installing solar, for installing geothermal heat. That wouldn't just serve Fargo and the community, but also the entire region. Currently, if you want to put in solar, oftentimes you have to go down to Minneapolis to find installers. This would help create the industry here in Fargo. In addition, you'd be creating green space to help absorb carbon and heat sinks, which are especially important in communities where you have reduced lot sizes. The way we propose to do this is basically ask for $5 million. Grants, funds, somehow come up with the $5 million. The way we came up with that number is the cost per lot to do this would be about $95,000 per lot. That's $60,000 in special, approximately, $17,000 in geothermal heat, and $18,000. So essentially the specials would be $95,000 per lot. If you could buy that down by half, that would make this on par with other developments, essentially $45,000 in specials. However, you would also have geothermal heat and solar energy, making the houses more affordable to live in. You would bring jobs to the region. You would serve as a model community for sustainable development for the state of North Dakota and Fargo. And the cost is equivalent to basically 4 stoplights. A single stoplight costs about $1.3 million. For $5 million, you would have a new development, which is model community, and bring jobs. That is what we'd be proposing for how to address climate change in our area.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Joe, you want to? And if you folks want to stand in line for the podiums, you're welcome to. Okay, Joe?
Hi, I'm Joe. I live in South Fargo. And I just want to compliment you for having this session, Commissioner Strand. We ought to do it maybe every 5 years. Although I think maybe only 2 more sessions would be practical because the scenario will change. It reminds me back in 2006, a group of us in Fargo spent our summer gathering names on a petition to have on the ballot a requirement that 20% of the electricity that comes into Fargo be from low carbon renewable energy by 2020. And that by 2030, it would be 30%. So alarmed was the Public Service Commission of North Dakota that they came to town to have what they called a public information hearing about it. They were afraid that this idea might sweep through North Dakota, and that'd be very upsetting for the lignite industry. So it's a contentious issue. Even 2 city commissioners at the time said that they were opposed to our ballot measure, because we successfully got on the ballot, because this was the purview of city commission and shouldn't be a requirement by the people. This was 2006. And both of those city commissioners, one was Williams and one was Coates, appeared to be pro-renewable energy and sensitive to climate change. So yesterday, I looked in the city website looking for, okay, are there any quantifiable objectives that would be aimed at addressing anything with climate change, reduce carbon use, reduce greenhouse gases, greater efficiency? I did not find any. There are no quantifiable objectives for 2020 or 2030. Without such quantifiable objectives, then projects like the one we just heard from, as laudable as they are, have no context. They aren't working toward resolving the problem. So if the asteroid was actually going to hit Earth, we would say our objective is to stop the asteroid from hitting Earth, and we have this amount of time to do it. And then we would develop the strategies to make that happen. I think for Fargo, the first thing that has to happen is markers have to be laid down by the city commission saying, this is what we're going to do, maybe 3 or 4 things, or what we have to do, actually, 3 or 4 things, and this is the timeline with which they get done. Now, we're interested in talking about ideas that will actually accomplish it and make it happen. We got a little over 40% of the vote back in 2006, so it was close even back then. But nothing has been done since that. So my ask here, set objectives. And then they're quantifiable, they're measurable, and they have a certain timeline so that everybody's accountable to those objectives. And then look at how they may be met with some great, interesting projects. What people don't know, and I'll finish with this, is, or maybe don't know, is the city of Fargo gets 2% of what you pay for your electricity bill as an excise sort type tax. So more electricity that we use or buy from the utilities, the more money the city of Fargo gets. And perhaps it's time that that money actually be used to accomplish some energy-related objectives. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. We'll go over here and then back to you, Larry. Bryce?
Hello, I am retired Marine Corps General Bryce Vincent Haugen, and I also represent Pete Buttigieg's campaign. But today I'm not speaking as a Marine or as a campaign staffer. I'm speaking as a global citizen. But that being said, the mayor has a 3-part plan that he'd like for me to share. So you all have been talking on the local level. Here's what the plan is more globally. The first pillar of the plan is to build a clean economy, a Green New Deal that creates over 3 million high-paying clean energy jobs over the next decade and achieves net zero emissions by 2050. He will put a price on carbon, quadruple federal clean energy R&D funding, and deploy technologies for clean manufacturing, transportation, and electricity generation in communities across the country. And this is very well planned out. On day 1 in the Buttigieg administration, they would launch the Clean Energy Victory Plan. In the first 100 days, President Buttigieg submits the new U.S. Paris climate goal for 2030 and hosts local leaders at the Pittsburgh Climate Summit. Then, by 2025, the goal is to double the clean electricity generated in the United States. 2035, build a clean electricity system with zero emissions and require zero emissions for all new passenger vehicles. By 2040, the plan is to require net zero emissions for all new heavy-duty vehicles, buses, rails, ships, and aircraft, and develop a thriving carbon removal industry. By 2050, we achieve our goal. We achieve net zero emissions from industry, including steel and concrete, manufacturing, and the ag sector, which is huge around here. Pillar number 2 is prepare communities for climate disruption, just like is happening today here in Fargo-Moorhead, West Fargo, Dilworth. Pete will make sure that everyone, especially those from low-income Black and Latino communities, are prepared for accelerating climate change. He will launch regional resilience hubs, including one here in Fargo-Moorhead, to help communities manage climate risk, create a national disaster insurance program, and improve systems for disaster preparedness and relief. And our local governments do a great job at this already. The third pillar is demonstrate global leadership and enlist every American to fight climate change. Pete's plans will unite communities across America to combat climate change together. He will pay farmers to use farming techniques that take carbon out of the atmosphere. He will create climate action bonds for everyone to invest in clean energy technologies. And he will invest in training for workers to transition into the new clean economy.
We need to wrap up if we can, Bryce.
One more line.
Yep.
The American people are facing one of the greatest tests in our history. When we tell our children and grandchildren about what we did in this moment, we must tell them that we worked together, took bold action, and met the greatest challenge of our time for ourselves, but mostly for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Bryce. And I'm just curious, looking into the audience, a show of hands, how many of you are hoping to speak today? Just a sense of, all right? So we're going to expedite and keep people down efficiently so that we can give everybody an opportunity, but it's good to know that we have folks with things on their minds. We'll go over to Larry.
I'm Larry Peterson from Fargo. I have some talk about markers, and I'm going to suggest some markers. City of Fargo has a lot of vehicles. Can we make them more energy efficient? City of Fargo has a lot of light fixtures, shall we say. Can we use more energy efficient bulbs? City of Fargo has a lot of land on which there could be trees planted, additional trees planted in order to capture greenhouse gases. Something that would be more difficult, you might think about changing building codes in Fargo in order to mandate more efficient housing and buildings built in Fargo. Thank you.
Some great thoughts. All right, we'll go right next. Okay.
I'm Dean Hulse. I live in Xcel Energy's service area, and I would like to request that the City Commission use their power as the purchasing agent for all of us electric consumers to get Xcel to extend its Renewable Connect program into North Dakota. 2 weeks ago, I went on the Xcel website and clicked on the Renewable Connect link, which is, it's 100% renewable from either solar or wind is what this Renewable Connect program is. And I don't have a virtual private network, so they know where my computer is coming from. I couldn't even get information about the Renewable Connect program because it showed that I was from North Dakota. So this takes political will. The City Commission, as the 2020 campaign in 2006 proved, has the power to negotiate with these regulated monopolies. The current cost, and this program is oversubscribed, so Fargo would be helping because scale makes these projects go forward. The current cost to subscribers for this Renewable Connect program is $3.60 per 100 kilowatt hour block of energy. Based on my electric usage, it would cost me 83 cents a day to join this. So let's move forward and get that program in this city. Thanks.
Thank you, Dean. We'll go over here.
Can you hear me?
Thank you very much. My name is Dennis Corn. I'm a lifelong resident of North Dakota. And I do want to thank John Strand and the commission for putting this on. How many here, just interesting, how many here are worried about the future for their children, their grandchildren, their great-grandchildren? Raise your hands. I am too. How many here believe that we need to do the best we can to ensure a viable future for our children, our grandchildren, and our great-grandchildren? Raise your hands. This is important. This should be important for everybody in the world. We are not separated by borders. We just have a thin layer over our heads. That layer is being destroyed as we speak. We need to really, really look at this quite seriously from a very large perspective. I ask that everybody here, and I'm asking the commission, the Fargo City Commission and others, get educated the best you can. 97% of the world's scientists are in total agreement that we are absolutely in the midst of climate change and that we can do something about it. That is important. Shouldn't we do it for our children? Shouldn't we do it for our grandchildren? Shouldn't we do it for their children? Some of you may be a little bit on belief about this, but I was just at the USGLC summit on Monday, and it about blew me away when Senator Kramer himself said he's definitely not with the president on the Paris Climate Accords. He does not want us pulled out of there. That's something that I think we can utilize to work with on areas on there to try to push to really get this through, that we don't pull out of the system. I think we need to use common sense. There's a lot of money that's involved here, a lot of businesses that's involved here. We need to find ways to make people understand that this can be profitable as we do it, bottom line. I'm also speaking from a personal standpoint. My second home is the jungles of Indonesia. I worked with the missionaries down there in the largest tidal swamp in the world. These people are the most affected in the world, third world people. They don't have the money to be able to combat rising sea levels. Last time I was there, we had high tides came in. This is a tidal swamp right at ocean level. I woke up, I was gonna go outside. I stepped outside. The night before water was like 15 feet before. The next morning, it was right at the bottom of the thing, bottom of the hut. They've been having to move their villages deeper and deeper into the rainforest because of what's happening. I also do want to say we've also seen it now in Venice with the high tides. We've seen it in Miami with the high tides. If people have seen the octopus in the parking lot. Pay attention, people. This is our future. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. We'll go over here.
Okay, mine is a little bit different from the others, but
Could you speak your name, please?
can you hear me now?
Yep,
Yeah.
and tell us who you are and just what city you live in, please.
My name is Jerry Fairfield from Fargo. And climate change, fossil fuel runs a lot of part of our state, is very much into telling us what to do and so forth, I believe. And we need to forget about the word Democrat and Republican, and we need to start voting for people that are doing good for you, doing things for you. And we forget about where they come from and elect them. And also, you know, people here, people here, run for office. You're good, you're smart, and you can do a good job. And another thing, and this isn't very nice, but we need to get rid of all those old people in our Congress. Okay? That's it.
Thank you very much. And we do have a catch box floating around. If anybody wants the catch box handed to them, just raise your arm. It's over here so you can see what it looks like. Do you have the catch box there? Yes. Let's go to you to give it a try.
Testing. Does it work?
Let's try it again.
Testing.
There we go.
Name Dennis Wiesenborn. I live in Moorhead, and thank you so much, Commissioner Strand, for initiating this event. I actually came prepared with a longer speech, but I'm really inspired by the number of youth at this event, and I'd really love to hear from them, and so I hope that some of you will steel yourselves to come up sooner rather than wait till the end.
Good, thank you. And if you want the catch box, just raise your arm and we'll pass it around. Okay, we'll go over to this podium and then we'll follow up with you, please. Okay.
Name's Mike Moberg. I'm from West Fargo. I have a degree in meteorology. I'm a scientist at heart. And I'm going to probably have the opinion that most people don't have here, that this climate change that we have is a real issue. I believe that a few years ago, or back in 1980 to 1996, we had global warming. And the science shows that the surface of the earth was warming, the atmosphere was warming. But since 1996, it's been flat. And so now we've changed it to climate change. It's no longer global warming, it's climate change. Well, what does climate change represent? We're talking about climate change. What's changing in the climate? This gentleman here had it, the higher tides he had entered. But what else? What else is changing? And some will say, oh, it's tornadoes. We're having more tornadoes. Well, we're not having more tornadoes. You can go out to the National Weather Service and look. There is no more tornadoes. The F3, more than F3 plus. Hurricanes. Since 1970, since we've had satellite, that's why they take it from 1970. That's when we got satellites. The hurricanes actually have trended down. The severity of hurricanes has actually trended down. So I don't want to see us put in public policies to fix a problem that we might not really have. I agree we should get greener energy and we should do thermal and we should do solar, but at what cost? The gentleman came up here and had $95,000 for a lot. Oh, we can't, people, that's more than I paid for my first house. And that's just for the lot, that's not even for the property. So I urge people to go back and look into the science behind this climate change and why we have this thing going on with climate change. You say, oh, the ice is melting in Greenland. Well, from 1990, it has melted. I'm not going to argue that. But from 2016 to 2017, the Greenland iceberg has added over 30 meters, almost 100 feet of ice. And the same again from 2017 to 2018, another 100 feet of ice. So the climate's going to change. It's going to get cooler. It's going to get warmer. But I just ask that we just don't go out and make public policy that's going to affect all this when we're trying to solve a problem that really might not exist. I just want you to think about that. Go out and do your own research and understand the science behind it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. All right, over in the front row, we have a catch box right there. If you'd like to stand up and tell us who you are, and make sure we can hear you.
I'm Penelope.
Penelope?
What?
Penelope?
Yeah.
Okay, you can continue.
Humans will be the destruction of Earth. We must solve this problem as quickly as possible. Climate change is one humongous problem.
Yeah, we're going to shift gears here. Yep. Let's try this. Penelope.
I can.
Okay.
All right. It's all good.
Humans will be the destruction of Earth. We must solve the problem as quickly as possible. Climate change is one humongous problem, but it's bringing us all together like the flood of 2007. All genders and races are coming together to solve a life-threatening problem. We're getting the opportunities to work together and not to judge people because of who they love, their skin tone, and their gender. Our leaders need to recognize this is a climate crisis. They need to work with us to fix it.
All right. Are you done, Penelope? All right, we'll go over to this microphone.
Hi, I'm John from Fargo. I'm a former scientist myself. Just a few points in 3 minutes. I actually have a new company that's selling solar panels. Jake and Sonia bought panels, and also Matt in Fargo, sitting over there, bought panels. And I want to say that those customers of mine are great, because right now, the two utilities, Excel and Cass County Electric, if you try and put panels on your house in Fargo in one of those two utilities, you'll spend all the money on the project, and they will get 75% of the revenue, and you'll get 25% of the revenue. And I don't think that's fair. And what that means is that people like Jake and Sonia and Matt may not get their money back for the panels that they put into initially, because they're only getting 1/4 of the revenue that from the solar energy they're generating. So I went and with others voluntarily asked Cass County Electric Cooperative to give the full price for the energy that they should get. Because, hey, they devalue solar by charging transmission and distribution fees 2 or 3 times on the solar energy. I don't know about you, but I don't like to pay the same fee 2 times or 3 times even, depending on the situation. And they basically said, no, we're not going to voluntarily add more value to the solar. So right now, if you want to do it, you may not get your money back. It's still the right thing to do. But until we change the two local utilities, it's not going to be easy to do. The other thing I would say is I would agree with the speaker who said that Fargo takes in a 2% franchise fee. That comes out to about $3 million a year that goes to the general fund from this energy tax. It would be great if we could spend some or all of that on local energy projects. And I know the city's going to take a hit in their general budget of $3 million if they decide to change that, but it might be worth changing the priority to fund new local renewable projects. And by doing so, if the city puts money into its own, to offset its own energy use, it will save us money over time. And if they get full price for their energy, they'll make a profit on it, and that will reduce our taxes over the lifetime of the system. And then finally, with respect to the other scientists who said, well, maybe climate change is or isn't happening, I think it's happening. I think there's definitive proof. Most scientists do. But let's leave it in terms of a non-scientist. I went to a conference, and an insurance agent from Minnesota, state insurance agent, said in 1998, the state of Minnesota paid out more insurance claims than the 40 years combined. So think about that. In 1 year, they paid out more insurance claims than the previous 40 years from 1957 to 1997. Every year since then, it's been happening that way. The price of insurance in Minnesota has gone up 3 times. Basically, what we're doing to our environment, you can't keep polluting it and expect no negative consequences. We're living those consequences now. Thanks.
Thank you, John. I just returned from a National League of Cities conference, and one of the bits of information shared with us at that conference was in the last 2 years, our country has spent more on disaster relief than the previous 20 years. So and this is through FEMA, so what's hitting them, whatever you call it, is pretty severe, and it's something we certainly ought to be aware of what's going on and where we're headed. Over to this podium. And for those just joining in, the format is this. We have a floating microphone and we have podiums. Everybody has 3 minutes. This is a listening session. Nobody's wrong. Everybody's got a voice and a platform and an opportunity to speak, and it's our conversational moment to hear from our citizens. So on that, we'll go over here.
Good afternoon. My name is John Rodenbiker. I live in Fargo. I am the Vice President of the Fargo Board of Education. To be clear today, I'm speaking for myself and do not necessarily represent or speak for the board as a whole or the Fargo School District. In 1992, 154 countries signed the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, aka the Earth Summit. The goal was to prevent dangerous anthropogenic interference with Earth's climate system. It aimed to stabilize emissions to 1990 levels by the year 2000. It committed industrialized countries to take the lead in reducing emissions. In 1997, 192 parties to the UNFCCC acknowledged that global warming is occurring and that human-made carbon emissions are predominantly causing it, aka the Kyoto Protocol. It specified emission limits over 2 commitment periods stretching from 2005 to 2020. In 2011, 187 parties signed the Paris Agreement and committed to limiting global warming to 3.6 degrees Fahrenheit above pre-industrial temperatures and to try to limit it to 2.6 degrees Fahrenheit by limiting CO2 emissions to substantially reduce the risks and impacts of the acknowledged climate change caused by humans. Last year in 2018, it was determined that that was no longer good enough, no longer sufficient. In 2019, and just this week, credible science now suggests that zero emissions must be reached by around 2030 to prevent unreversible impacts to human society. This month, the Oxford Dictionary included climate crisis in its Words of the Year list. We are in a climate crisis. It's an emergency. Since 1992, 27 years, more than 2 graduating classes from kindergarten to graduating from high school, over twice, we have not taken policy-based action to address what we know is happening. We all are accountable for preparing our students for their future. I have a daughter and a son. My daughter's here. I see other daughters and sons out here. Grandchildren, those yet unborn. We are responsible and accountable to them. At this moment, the Fargo School District operates 25 buildings, educates more than 11,000 students, employs the 4th most employees in the region. Please, I'll be done here in just a moment. The board has the responsibility, and the school district has the responsibility to lead our region's response to this crisis. I will be soon proposing that the board direct our administration that the superintendent may not fail to develop and execute a facility plan that establishes priorities for construction, renovation, and maintenance projects, that provides for high-performing, human learning-focused environments that are efficient and responsible with their operations at all district facilities by maximizing energy efficiency, water efficiency, waste reduction, maximizing the environment for human health, maximizing the transportation experience while minimizing our transportation emissions, maximizing our landscaping and neighborhood considerations, and maximizing employee and student productivity and retention. In addition to that, in our 2020 long-range facilities plan, I believe that our goal must be for net zero carbon emissions from our facilities by the year 2030. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Okay.
Hello, my name is Ed Melro. I was born in Fargo and I live in Moorhead. I'd just like to share some information. The city of Los Angeles and that area had a law put in place that they needed to have 10% of all vehicles be eco-friendly. And so for a moment at the turn of the century, this law was in place. And LA had smog problems, and as it does, emission problems. Well, the very short few years while this law was in place, their emissions went down, and they had put in electric cars, electric car charging stations, and lobbyists and big money came in, shut it down, and people that had these electric cars, they were taken from them, repossessed from them against their will, the electric charging stations taken down. Now, that goes to show that a city can do something with these issues, but it also goes to show that there is very big, powerful businesses at play in this particular debate, climate issue. Oil, the United States, biggest importer and exporter of oil in the world, okay? Oil is probably one of the biggest issues that needs to be addressed. Gasoline and the efficiency of our main way of transportation, our motors. Now, unfortunately, most of these auto companies have bought out patents to batteries for electric cars. Scientists told, yeah, great, we want your technology. They buy it, and then they tell them, I'm sorry, this is ours now. You can't do anything. And where does that technology go? Nowhere, because it goes against the oil industry. Unfortunately, that oil industry is very powerful. It runs a majority of business in this world, in my opinion. Now, beyond that, I would love to see Fargo participate and be known for one of the cities that is going to try to address this thing that we are calling climate change, the pollution that's happening. Whatever is happening, clearly something's happening. I read the BBC, and we're having droughts that are beyond measure, floods that are beyond measure. In the South Sudan, that country just got hit by a devastating flood. Half the country almost flooded. We had to send in UN efforts to help that. So clearly there's something happening with the climate. What it is, no one knows. We just know something is occurring. It is changing, which the only constant is change. So I love to see people talking about this, but it is very much a large political issue on a business sense, because the change is there that can be done, but do the businesses want to make the change? And that's all I got.
Thank you, Ed. Okay, go right on up. Okay.
All right, thank you. I'm Paul Jensen. I represent the Citizens Local Energy Action Network here in town, a group of people who are interested in improving the conditions for our citizens in Fargo, Moorhead, and West Fargo. And I've heard a lot of very excellent arguments now, but I just want to put a little bit of things in perspective. We, U.S. Citizens in North Dakota, compared to the rest of the United States, we emit far more CO2 than anybody else. I can tell you that it's 15 metric ton per capita for the United States. North Dakota is 70 metric ton per capita. Of course, we are so sparsely populated, but it goes to show the ratio that we are contributing with. Well, we have a number of rising tides in North Dakota. We don't have tornadoes. Sorry, I have to begin again. While we do not have rising tides here in North Dakota, we do have tornadoes and rivers that are flooding both north and south as a result of excessive rainfalls and changes in temperature. And that's something we need to be aware of. It's not easy to be aware of when you compare to what goes on the West Coast and the East Coast and the rest of the world. We're relatively well insulated here from major climate disasters, but I guess if you ask the farmers nowadays, they will say that no, that's not the case. Our crops are much more wet now. It costs us more to get goods to the market. And in general, we at some places they had to plow under their soybeans this year. So it's not a very positive situation that our farming communities are experiencing. But this is, in my opinion and many other people's opinion, the result of the changes in the climate. And while the remaining world is changing its energy use and developing new products and services, having less impact on the climate, for example, electric vehicles, solar panels, and for residences, we here we are actively working against it in this state, and we often sit on our hands, not taking advantage of the many good new business opportunities that can be had. The rest of the world is screaming for solutions to the effects of climate change, and I think we are ideally placed to come up with these solutions We have our educational institution here. We have a lot of smart people. We need to be able to do something about that, and I think we can. We also have excellent solar and wind resources here, but we stubbornly maintain our dependence on fossil fuels. And that's where I would like to appeal to the city leaders to take more advantage of alternative fuels, renewable fuels, and to reduce and eliminate our dependence by adding the electric vehicle infrastructure charging, which is on baby steps happening right now, and try to avoid the use of coal. And I would also say that the other step that we did in the town here was to capture the landfill gases, which was an excellent achievement. So we're in small baby steps going forward, but I think we need to go faster. And the Citizens Local Energy Action Network would like to collaborate with the city's leaders to go forward with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. We'll go over to this podium.
My name is Dwayne Pribula. I'm a Catholic priest serving a retirement community here in Fargo. Several highlights. I've been involved in this kind of activity for 20, 25 years. Just to say, make these points that we as churches and communities of various kinds perhaps need to make the initiatives ourselves rather than expecting initiatives to happen at another level above where we serve or live ourselves. To take the initiatives, for example, to not be using balloons as we celebrate events. So that, as you know, balloons contaminate, get into our water systems and affect the bird life and animal life in the rivers and streams and so forth, as an example. The ozone layer was an issue for us. The poisons that affected some of our national bird, that has been removed from as a resource and a use in our environment in terms of being an herbicide, that kind of thing. So another issue is that we as individuals and we as communities, churches, universities, and schools perhaps can make decisions to choose the best eco-friendly pesticides and herbicides, or make them ourselves so that they replace what is contaminating and destructive of wildlife and life in our local environments. The word environment does mean the house we live in. We live in this earth house, and indeed we are affecting how it's being contaminated and polluted and destroyed. We need to be aware of the future generations that are inheriting what we are doing right now ourselves. We need to be aware also that in different groups, and I say church groups that I belong to, the Catholic Climate Coalition is a group that I belong to, that belong to various groups to be able to enhance them and build them up and do what can be done locally in terms of promoting an awareness of what we are doing to affect negatively our environment. Lutherans, Methodists, Episcopalian churches, and so forth have written major issues, major statements. Our major statement as a Catholic Church was Laudato Si, which means I praise you, O Lord. And I encourage people to look at it, look it up. It's a long reflection composed of the experiences of churches around the world. We can reduce, maybe even non-use, such things as plastic straws, plastic tableware, grocery bags, that kind of thing. Look for other alternatives and use them reflectively ourselves. I have a pile of plasticware that I've collected by taking it home and washing it and using it again, for example. We might also encourage those who are in high schools and grade schools, colleges, universities, and other places of learning to have maybe have events where there is a reflection, and also just let's say just to say that be courageous and join the groups that you'd like to belong to. Make a difference.
This is just some really good stuff today, folks. It's great to hear from people and have it unfiltered and be honest and frank, because we need it. We'll go over to this microphone.
Hi, can you hear me? All right, sweet. Hi, I'm Ryan Livedall. I'm 15. I'm a student from Fargo South. And I came here today to call on our city commission to declare a climate emergency for the city of Fargo. Yeah. This is a very important issue of our time, and I really just wanted to tell everybody here today that I just want to make it to 50. Really, you can ask me what I want to do after that, but I need to make it to 50 first. There's plenty of different things our city can do to help with, as much individuals talking earlier about alternatives to things. Personally, one thing I would like to see in the city is increased focus on bike lanes like we have near NDSU to make our roads less cluttered, to have a lot of our city just be a lot more traversable by things other than cars, to not even need to have those electric cars, just to completely cut those emissions off in the first place. But I truly want to believe everybody on our city commission are good people who will do good things. And there's only one way I can really ever know that, and it's if we see action on these issues. See action on these issues that are defining our times. There's something I want to talk about real quick too. The gentleman in white earlier who was talking earlier, with all due respect, mentioned something about Greenland's ice sheets growing. It is true what he said about Greenland's ice sheets growing. However, if I've seen this data before, and something he forgot to mention is how Greenland aren't the only ice sheets in the entire world. The net ice that we have each year is going down. In some cases, like Greenland, it may be growing, but the net ice sheets we have in the world are slowly depleting. And every year this gets faster and faster. And this water, just as another individual talking was earlier, is not going to go anywhere but into our cities. Places like Venice, who aren't even sure if the water levels are even going to go down now, making that entire city almost uninhabitable. But really, I just wanted to say today that we need to declare a climate emergency for the city of Fargo. Thank you and have a nice day.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Nicole Steppen. I am a biology student at Minnesota State University Moorhead. I am here today on behalf of my future. The disaster that we call climate change is happening everywhere around the globe at the same time. The clock is ticking. The clock has been ticking for 150 years since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. The disaster is happening to our farmlands, it's happening to our rivers, it's happening to our ocean, our forest, our wildlife, it's happening to our climate. How long will it be until humanity understands that everything is interconnected? If we don't stop CO2 levels from rising within my lifetime, we will set off a cascade of negative feedback loops and destroy our habitat, not just for ourselves, but for generations to come. Knowing this, how can anybody comply? How can we carry on with business as usual? We need massive change. So I say, let the revolution begin. So, commissioners, Commissioner, Fargo, our demands are that Fargo declares a climate emergency. Fargo commits to significantly and substantially reducing our carbon footprint, straying from fossil fuels and focusing on green energies. North Dakota is very capable of wind and solar energy. Third, we demand that you organize a Citizens Climate Emergency Task Force with a broad representation from public and private sectors, from all neighborhoods, and that is demographically diverse. Again, my name is Nicole Steppen. I'm a student at MSUM. I'm 21 years old. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you, Nicole. Some really good action items for us all to embark upon. Okay.
Hi, my name is Quinn Overland. Currently, I live in Moorhead. So everybody's been talking like big global issues, and that's actually amazing. That's more than I was expecting. But I'm here to talk about a small issue that has really big impact on our very small children. I work in the childcare industry, so almost 10 years now, and one of our big issues that we have in Fargo specifically is even though we require children spend 1 hour a day outside, we can only allow them outside for if the temperature is correct. And so if it's too high or too low, we can't go outside, which makes sense. The problem is that a lot of our playground equipment increases the temperature of our playgrounds, making it impossible for children to go outside. So I would propose that Fargo made it more that daycares would have to use more green space or more environmentally friendly playground equipment, so then that way the temperatures on their playgrounds wouldn't fluctuate so bad, causing them to not be able to get outside, causing just the area, the bubble around their daycare to have such a high increase in temperature compared to the temperature around it.
Okay, thanks, Lynn. Then we have 2 microphones, podiums. If you want to go to a podium, go to either side, and/or you can raise your hand and we'll pass a microphone to you. We'll go over here. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Amelia. I'm 15. And thank you, Commissioner Strand, for this opportunity. I would like the City of Fargo to declare a climate emergency and start work on the long overdue project of reducing Red River Valley's carbon footprint. I've been watching the climate crisis unfold for years, reading the IPCC reports when they come out, watching the EPA be crippled by the administration. I think it is time for those in positions of power to start paying attention and fix this so I can focus on school, and because that's literally their job. I am curious as to how many Fargo commissioners have read the IPCC special report. I'm going to guess that it's not all of them. I recommend it. It's a fascinating read. The climate crisis is a crisis, and we don't need to be debating the science or even whether or not we should do something about it. We have to. We have all the technologies and resources that we need at our fingertips. So to the absent commissioners and mayor, if they're not going to step up and act, they can step down and make room for people who will. Thank you.
Okay.
Hello, my name is Milo and I turned 12 last week. I think we should declare this a climate emergency because in my short life I've noticed different animals, especially birds, migrating at different times. I would like to have a happy and healthy life and for my kids to have a happy and healthy life with lots of nature readily available for many generations to come. Overall, I think we should take a bolder stance by declaring this climate emergency. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Hello, I'm Penner. I live in Fargo. I'm 15. I go to Fargo South. And I believe climate change is a huge problem. And we need to deal with it as soon as possible. We have to speak up not just as people, but as a city. We have been saying little to nothing in our state for so long that we are seeing places like Venice and Florida sink into the water. Many world leaders aren't doing anything about it, and our state is not either. I want us to become an example and to influence the rest of our state. So as a community of people who live on our earth, we can survive as a race of human beings past maybe a few more generations. Even now, we can see as things are getting really bad. Like I said earlier, places are sinking. The ice sheets are melting. But it'll just get worse as time goes on. So we, as Fargo, the biggest city in North Dakota, need to step up and declare a climate emergency so we can make a difference and change the minds of those who just won't do anything right now. And thanks again, Commissioner, for letting me and everyone here speak.
Thank you for showing up. Okay, we'll go over to this podium.
Hello, my name is Donna Clark. I live in Moorhead. I just want to say that I've been working on these kinds of issues since the 1970s, I suppose. Earth Day in Central Park in New York City in the 70s. We were so hopeful, but things got in our way, and we had businesses, people who make money off of all the things that are causing our problems, had the ear of the Congress. And I understand that we want to have a good economy. My pension comes from investments. I did take the step to divest my investments in fossil fuel industry. And I think that each of us do things on our own. We feel powerless. I believe in voting. I believe in letting my representatives know what I believe and what I think. But it seems like we're just spinning our wheels right now. So either more of us have to rise up and say, no more, we want to make change, like the people here today are doing. And we also have to each, I think, search our souls and decide where it is that we are willing to make sacrifice. My parents made a terrible sacrifice during World War II, and they were older people, they weren't young then. My father wanted to be a doctor, but he felt when he finished the Army, when the war was over, that he couldn't afford the time that it would take to go on to medical school. So he did other things. And I think each of us have to decide, I'm willing to walk and ride my bicycle and try to use mass transit as much as possible in order to not increase the use of fossil fuels. That's my commitment. So far, I haven't been asked to do that. I do it, but I sometimes wonder how much change that really makes. So I'm just glad to see all of us. Thank you, Commissioner, for your allowing us to express our beliefs and thoughts and ideas.
Thank you, Donna, for showing up. Okay, is anybody over to this side? Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Commissioner Strand, I'd like to thank you for organizing this event today. Just looking around, I think it's pretty obvious that there's a lot of people that have a strong interest in this issue that feel passionately. My name is Matt. I am one of the people that John mentioned that recently had a solar installation installed at my home. I know many other people asked me about the project and were very interested in pursuing something similar for their homes. However, the rate at which we are reimbursed for any excess solar generation, as John mentioned, is rather low. It's significantly lower than they charge you for electricity off the grid. So I think it's important that we look for local solutions, ways that we can perhaps work with utilities in order to make this a more financially beneficial project for people. It is a large investment up front. So anything we can do to incentivize that process a little bit, I think there is a strong interest within the city of pursuing renewable energy projects. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Matt. We'll go over here. Welcome.
Hello, my name is Meg Riddle from Fargo. I'm not going to waste any time up here trying to explain why we should act. I think the time for discussion on that is over. We need solutions now rather than trying to convince people who don't want to be convinced. So I think it's important to recognize when things are done correctly, when things are done right. So I want to take the opportunity to thank the city for what they've done, making downtown more pedestrian and bicycle friendly. I think not only do we have the added benefit of less traffic, but it is one of the steps we need to take to reduce our emissions. And I would love to see expanded efforts to put that outside of downtown, in other neighborhoods as well. Other ideas that we can just float around, maybe some sort of tax incentive for homeowners if they put a solar panel up. I know some cities offer free bus transit with their library card. I think it's going to take a lot of a marketing campaign on the side of the city. Let's have like motorless Mondays where once a week or heck once a month, take a bike or walk or take the bus to work. But it's going to require like getting that word out there and getting everyone involved. But yeah, just those kind of creative solutions that we can come up with. Thank you.
Thank you. Over here.
Hi, I'm Carol Pearson, and I've lived in Fargo since 1997. And I want to emphasize how excited I am to have this opportunity to have a town meeting on this issue. Secondly, because I am a new grandmother and I have about 7, it causes me to really think about the future generations down and be passionate about that. Thirdly, I think that there are a lot of innovative ideas. I do passionately believe this is an emergency, and I think that if things are not going to happen on the national level, we don't have time to wait for that. We have to do it on the state level, we have to do it on our local and regional level, and an individual level. So I think all of those levels, there is no time, and we need to move, and we can't wait. Further, my 4th point is I'd kind of like to call for thinking of coalitions that are grassroots and broad-based and not so polarized as our current dialogues have become. And one of my favorite examples from my life was I used to live in a small mountain town in Colorado, and there was a big controversy about grazing on BLM lands, and this grassroots coalition that contained elements from the ranching community as well as from this High Country Citizens Alliance and environmental group came together and worked for a year and came up with a plan that was adopted by BLM and became a national plan for use of grazing on public lands. And so I believe it's possible to do that from pulling threads together from different and opposing ideas and problem solve and come up with solutions. And so I call on our community as well as our state to look at that as a model and go across, move beyond polarization to problem solving for this emergency. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Hi, I'm Sonny Brannick. I live in Fargo. I'm not always from Fargo. I used to live in central Kansas, and one of the things that we were looking at when we went to move was we really love the prairie, and we wanted to stay in the prairie. I mean, how many of you love the prairie? Yes, it's a beautiful place. It used to cover 40% of the United States, but now we're just down to like 1% of it is left. And one thing that I think people often forget is natural prairies were great at carbon sequestration. And so we usually look at trees to do this, but we've already got the environment ready for habitat here. And I know one thing that I'd read a few years ago was 90% of Kansas's arable land had already been converted into agricultural land, so it's gone. I'm sure that North Dakota, being fairly similar, is somewhere along those lines. So I would really like to see the city really look at their public lands and see what they can do to kind of restore some native prairie within the city along roadways. I know one of the largest tracts of unbroken prairie that was in existence, I think it still is a few feet long strip that runs for many, many miles along a railroad, and that's why it was protected. So yeah, I would like to see the city do that, particularly with an emphasis on pollinator plants, because native insects are in decline 40% around the world. And while I think we all know that cockroaches will outlive us all, a lot of the higher life forms that need those insects will take them out with us. And I have to pick on the Weasenborns over there. Sorry, Diane. They have a beautiful prairie garden that they have started in their backyard. It is one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. I love walking through there. So I'd also encourage homeowners on their own level to do the same at their own homes. If you're interested in what plants to use, particularly for pollinator gardens, the NDSU Extension Office already has a list and tells you what species, how many you should have, and it's ready to go for you at any moment. So I would just like to see kind of a twofold effort, both on the city and on individual levels. That's it.
Thank you very much. You know, I don't know about everybody, but I'm taking pages of notes. And it'll take me some time to process all of this information. And going forward, I hope we can all get past today with a desire to enact action. So keep your thoughts going forward as to how we can all partner, how you can help us, how we can keep us on task, and keep aiming in the right directions, because there's an awful lot of great information coming from all of you today. We'll go over here.
Hello, my name's Jacob, and I live here in Fargo. I'm a molecular biologist for trade, but I also have an interest in prior research experience in public health. I'm not up here to talk about any policy changes because I don't feel like I'm informed enough to make those decisions. What I'm up here to talk about is the prior research that we've done in the human immune system, because that's what I know best. The professional healthcare officials up in the Fargo region are doing a wonderful job treating for and caring for the patients that come to their clinics. Now, with the possible effects that we might be seeing due to climate change, that may very well change in the upcoming few years. A couple of specific examples is due to rising CO2 levels, increased flooding in this area, and a slightly higher temperature will lead to differences in what diseases will be able to take a foothold in this region. One very specific example is the mold Aspergillus fumigatus. This is a common mold that already exists in the air around us. It grows in croplands and grain storage, and it's very prevalent in areas that have recently been hit by flooding. Repeated exposure to this fungi results in asthma in young people, old people, and immunocompromised. And it can also lead to more severe fungal infections that will eventually kill the patient. What the research has been finding that is when this fungus is growing in environments with higher CO2, it starts to create a larger allergy response in the people that are exposed to it. And if this region were to start experiencing more heavy flooding, the number of spores in the air will increase as the growing environment increases. If the temperature in this region starts to increase as well, the growing season for this fungi will start to increase, and the people in this region will be exposed to the spores for a longer period of time, having a larger impact on their health. This is just one example of how the climate crisis will affect the human health in this very specific region, and this isn't even accounting for the entire range of bacteria and fungi that can live in this environment. What we need to look at in the coming years is how we're going to address these changes that we'll have on the people living in this region, because if we don't, the health of Fargo citizens will be impacted and will suffer. That's all I feel like I'm qualified to talk about at this time, and I want to thank everyone for coming here and listening to this. And thank you, Commissioner, for hosting us.
Wow. This is really great to listen and learn like we are getting this opportunity today. Go over to former Commissioner Mike Williams.
Hi, I'm Mike Williams. I'm a longtime Fargo resident, And it's power to the people. I mean, you guys have a lot of power. I think about, in early 2000s, 2003, North Dakota had 3% wind energy. Now we're at 27%. What changed? Part of it was they had a mandate in Minnesota that said they want more clean, renewable energy. Minnesota is North Dakota's #1 customer. So the utility company said, well, let's give them what they want. Now we have more wind power, 27%. I think we're the 3rd largest wind power producer in the country. But it wasn't because the companies necessarily wanted to do it. It was because people got together and said, this is what we want. We've been able to do this in Fargo too. Fargo has led in renewable energy, or in, I should say, conservation in some ways. John or someone had mentioned the methane capture, turning it into electricity. That was wasted into the atmosphere. We're doing the same thing with flaring out in the oil patch right now. 27% of that natural gas is being flared. It's crazy. It's billions of dollars being wasted into the atmosphere. People can make the difference. You can make the difference, and you have made the difference. Does anybody remember that Fargo, remember the Earth Day Network? We've just heard from it. We were chosen the #1 environmental city in 2007. I just looked it up again today because it's actually hard to believe, but we got an A+ because we were doing things. We were switching to LED lights. We were buying hybrid buses. We tripled our transit ridership. Those are some ways that cities can lead. We did it again when we asked the citizens, when we did the Go 2030 plan in 2010 to 2012, it was groundbreaking, because usually when you're doing a comprehensive plan, if you get 250 people involved in a year-long plan, that's considered successful. There was new technology called virtual town hall. So people like you, and you maybe did, registered, and you said, what kind of city you want Fargo to be by 2030. 8,700 people weighed in. And the way they'd present their idea, if it didn't get a second, it fell down. If it did get a second, they'd build it up and they'd make it go. So everything I've heard here today is in the Go 2030 plan as a key initiative and a priority. We've made progress in some of those initiatives, but not enough of them. And we need to track it. We can't manage what we can't measure. So we need to continue to measure our progress as we're moving towards these goals. And we can do this. So we have a blueprint. What we don't have is enough of these where we're working together. We don't agree on everything. The gentleman that talked about whether it's climate or not, really, you think about it, what's the downside? Okay, let's say 97% of the scientists are wrong and it isn't man that's affecting climate. What's the downside? Cleaner air, cleaner water, better and more active transportation and land use. What's the downside? And you make money at it, so here we go.
There's no doubt about it that former Commissioner Mike Williams is one of the clarion voices in our community and has been one of the leaders for the last decade or more in these topics, and it's just a pleasure to have that opportunity to work with him and others going forward and have him still so engaged in our community. This is what it takes. Over here, welcome.
Bonjour. My name is Wabishki Gweden McQuay. I'm also known as Tracy L. Wilkie. I was born in Fargo 52 years ago, and I've been back here for almost a year. I've been living in Fargo this past week, and in and out of Fargo. I guess to clarify, I've been in and out of Fargo since last December. But the Red River Valley is my homeland. It's our ancestral homeland. I'm an enrolled member of the Turtle Mountain Band of Chippewa, and this is our treaty land. And I'm thankful to be here today to witness everybody wanting to protect our air, our land, our water. And especially, I'm thankful to the children that have been here today to share and looking out for our next 7 generations. And I'm here with my friends from the Red River Valley DSA to make a better tomorrow and to demand that the city of Fargo declare a climate emergency. Miigwech.
Okay, you're up.
What's up, Fargo? I grew up in this town. Wish I was born here, but I was born in KC.
Could you get closer to the microphone,
Sorry,
please?
my name is Zach. I went to Horseman for kindergarten, then Roosevelt, then Ben, then North. Graduated in 2001. Then I left for 16 years and came back. And it's disgusting. This is absolutely ridiculous. Listen to that Danish fellow. I think he just left with his daughter, and not these little kids who want to be Swedish on the news. Actors. That's it.
Okay. We'll go over to this side. Is there somebody next in line?
Tough act to follow. Good afternoon. My name is Patrick Summer, and I'm here to follow up with everyone that has said thank you, first of all, Commissioner Strand, for offering this forum to us, and then to demand of you and the rest of the city to declare that climate emergency. Not only am I a resident of Fargo, but I'm also a parent. I've got 2 young adult daughters, and I've had a lot of trouble looking them in the eye lately when we bring up the subjects of social inequality, resource consumption, climate change. Part of that reason I have that issue is that I wonder, for the past 30 years, where the heck were we? What were we doing? 1988, I was a sophomore in high school when this started to get laid out in front of us. Dr. Hansen presented to Congress pretty much the roadmap, year by year, decade by decade, of the consequences of fossil fuel use, of climate change that we see today. And we really did nothing. Should I not have been out there participating in school strikes, marches, demonstrations, town hall meetings like this? Should we not have been planning for our children's and their children's future? If we had fought a little bit harder back then, maybe we would not have needed to be here today. We didn't do any of that in high school and college years. We doubled down on the mess that got handed to us. And I'm here to tell you that I am no longer going to be part of the problem. Hopefully none of you will be either. It shouldn't just be our youth, our children, our young adults that are standing up and fighting to save not just their own generation, but an entire civilization, an entire world. We must no longer be part of the problem. We must be part of the solution. We do have ways and means. Several policy ideas have been presented to us. I've got a few of my own involving lighting, LED night structure systems, which I'll forward over to you. But for the rest of my time, I just want to beg of you to get behind the idea of identifying our problem, admitting we have an issue, and declaring that climate emergency. That is the critical first step, which will power all of the solutions, all of the activities, all of the needed structural changes to society and to our city that will make it not only a livable place, a more healthier place, but will contribute to the world as a more healthy and livable place going forward. We must treat the next few years of work, and it will be work, as if our lives depend on it, because they do. We must also learn to see that every action we take should be framed in the context that if we continue on a fossil fuel-driven, business-as-usual path, we are harming someone else directly by our actions in our community and around the world. I just ask of you again, beg of you, that this climate emergency is declared and we get around to building a better society and future for those youth and ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Okay.
Hi, my name is Eric. I'm originally from Monticello, Minnesota, and now I'm a student here at NDSU. And I just wanted to ask you all, if you haven't looked at it yet, the topographical map of Fargo is pretty interesting, and you'll see that our top of our city is the landfill. I wanted to address something that hadn't been brought up today yet, and that was recycling here in the Fargo-Moorhead area. Minn Kota is a company that handles the majority of our recycling here. Our facility in Fargo, which is not too far from here, just a few blocks, is still operational. However, the facility over in Moorhead recently had to close. I just wanted to bring this up because why are we closing a business that employs our residents, employs 1.5 million people across the US, and also that landfill stinks and I don't like putting stuff in it if I don't have to. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric.
Hello,
Welcome.
my name is Isabella Nichol. I'm from Fargo South, and tomorrow is my 16th birthday. I never thought that at this age I'd have to be one of the people fighting this fight. I never thought that in this day, in this year of 2019, that this fight that's been going on for decades still hasn't been won. As we begin to declare a climate emergency, I believe that we also need to make going green seem beneficial, seem like it's not only the right thing to do, but it's the thing that we need to do. There's been lots of misinformation spread all around, and it's been this way for years and years. But we've had the science, we've had the technology, we've had the research for decades, and nothing's been done about it. So in addition to this climate change crisis, we need to make education more standard about all the different energy sources, going waste-free, everything. Because no longer should it be just the right thing to do, but it should be the thing that we need to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Isabel. Okay.
Hi there, my name is Athena Graysick and I live in Moorhead. I want to touch on a subject that may not be pertinent to the city of Fargo in particular, but I want to address the issue of climate change and farmers' understanding and reaction to that. As some of you may know, the potato crops in both states are in the ground and rotting. Beets, unharvestable. The unseasonable rains have made the fields so muddy that the big equipment that they use to harvest cannot get through and get the crops out. This is a devastating loss for our farmers. So I attended a conference, or a town hall recently with Colin Peterson, and there were farmers from both sides of the river attending. Their main concern was crop insurance. How do I get crop insurance to cover my losses? My question was, why did not one of them ask, what will the government do to help ensure that farmers are able to get their crops in and out of the fields? Food shortages are coming. Droughts are increasing. This is not something that farmers can solve on their own. None of us, all of us can do our own individual pieces, but we need government to step in and make policy changes and and insist on innovative technologies that are going to help us survive what's going to come. So my question is, or I guess my request would be that the commissioners of Fargo speak with the legislators and the leaders of North Dakota and bring up how do we talk to farmers and convince them to take this climate change seriously and innovate for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Athena. All right.
Hello, my name's Neva Francis, and I'm here today, like so many others here, because we have a climate crisis. The only reasonable reaction to this crisis is to declare a climate emergency and to begin work immediately to minimize the damage it will cause. I moved to Fargo almost 15 years ago, and I love this community. A few months ago, a group of us got together and decided that we wanted to have a climate strike to draw attention to the climate crisis. And the response we got from our leaders is this town hall here today. I appreciate living in a community where the leaders responded by bringing us in to listen rather than pushing us away. Thank you for having us here today. I also feel hopeful looking around me here today at all the young people who are advocating for their futures and for that of our planet. They are incredibly inspiring and brave. These are our future leaders, and that makes me feel hopeful. I see your bravery. I see your courage, and I want to thank you all. The IPCC report that came out last year woke me up about the urgent threat of the climate crisis. We were warned that we only had 12 years to change course in order to mitigate the worst damage being done to this planet. 12 years. We had 12 years. I heard that warning, and I started to educate myself about what a world would look like if it warms by 2 degrees or 4 degrees, by 2050, by the end of the century. The dates and predicted events all fall within the lifetimes of my 2 young children, Remy and Cole. Climate change is everywhere in the news if you're paying attention. Hurricanes, wildfires, flooded farmlands. So it's really not surprising to me that my 7-year-old daughter has started asking me questions. She wondered what we're doing to protect the earth. We talk about how important it is to recycle, to drive less, to turn off the lights when you don't need them. Her next question for me is if that's enough to keep our planet safe. So that's when I get to decide whether to tell her a fairy tale or to tell her the truth. And if I'm being honest, the action of my family, whatever we do, is not enough. I want to be honest with my kids, but I need your help. So here I am because you've asked us to be here today. So now I'm asking you to be brave. Be brave and declare a climate emergency. Because if the future for our children isn't safe, this is an emergency. Declare a climate emergency and resolve to take every measure possible to substantially decrease our carbon footprint. Let's be brave together so we can look this next generation in the face, and so I can look my children in the eye and tell them honestly that we're doing everything possible to ensure that their future is safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
I had a speech written, but I think Neva said everything I was going to say. I'll just say this, I think a lot of speakers today have said everything that needs to be said. We have good ideas in this community. We have the political will. What we don't have is action. We've been talking a lot about like different kinds of electricity or whatever, but political power is no different. It's work over time. So I'm going to ask you, John, and Mayor Mahoney, will you commit to declaring a climate emergency before, I don't know, Earth Day next year?
Absolutely.
Hi, I'm Ira Bagu. I'm here to speak about the Arctic. If we keep pollution up at this rate, we're going to lose a lot of species that live in the Arctic, including polar bears and Arctic foxes. So we should stop now to save the world and to save the ice. And it also makes the summers harder for everyone. People in the desert have to find more water to survive. This is a world crisis. We should stop now, or else we could lose all of the ice on the planet, and no one would like that. So bye.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Hillary Ray. I live in Moorhead. I'm 58. And I wanted to remind our meteorologist friend that the impact of our complacent reliance on fossil fuels is more than just financial. I note that the president withdrew U.S. troops from Syria recently. He later announced that the same troops would be redeployed to Syria. His stated reason was to protect oil fields. As a veteran, that is a use of my tax dollars that I cannot support. Locally produced renewables represent true energy security. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jennifer. I'm actually from Canada, and I've been living in Fargo for the last few months, and it's a lovely town. Prior to that, I was actually living in China, and I lived in Beijing and got to see what polluted air and polluted water looks like. So this is a global problem. Everybody has a responsibility to be part of the solution, and I love all of the ideas and everything. Actually, I first found out about global warming when I was 15 years old, and had the chance to put together an event at my high school, and only my 4 friends attended at the time. So I'm glad to see that there's some progress, and to all the youth that are here, thank you for re-inspiring me, and just know that this is a long road. It's a marathon. We're not gonna solve anything overnight, but just don't give up. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Well, I'm Leo. I am from West Fargo, and everything that has been said here is amazing. I'm glad everybody's here. I guess I have just one thing that I want to add that I think all politicians should hear. Endless economic growth on a finite planet is impossible, and it will never be possible. For you to ensure a livable, habitable planet for future generations, we need to adjust our priorities vigorously and declare a climate emergency. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Jean Boltman, and I would like to suggest to avoid the 5G. There's dangers on that doctors have talked about in Michigan that's on YouTube. And we could go more to the 0-point energy and demand the release of suppressed technology that's available. You can see that from the 0-point energy from Dr. Stephen Greer, who's a ER doctor on the East Coast that has lots of military people who have come forward that have worked in this field for decades, where if this technology came available, we could be free of the petroleum. We could have like Nikola Tesla's and technologies that have been available and suppressed at that time. And if that came forward, we would be much more advanced in our healthcare with the release of the suppressed technology. Pharmaceutical information could all come forward, and we could avoid all the geoengineering that's been going on. You could go to geoengineeringwatch.org, where Dane Wigington out in California has showed where all this drought and the fires have come forth in California. David Wilcox has put out YouTube videos along with Corey Good, and we could make our planet a better place. So I'd like to have you demand the release of suppressed technology, avoid the 5G, and go into 0-point energy. All this information is available out there, and just contact Dr. Stephen Greer, who is advanced with all this and has been working with it for decades. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Mahoney?
Thank you very much for sharing today. I just want to make a couple of you aware of what the City of Fargo does right now. So a few years ago, we won the George Washington Energy Reduction, and what we did is we had a program that went out there to the children, and we learned how to decrease the amount of energy your houses use, decrease the amount of things that happen in the community. This year, the City of Fargo hired a facility manager. The facility manager's job is to go out and find out better ways that we can save energy, to go more different options to have less carbon in the atmosphere. Our landfill is the only landfill in the state of North Dakota that harvests methane, and we utilize that methane in a positive manner. Our landfill is one of the state-of-the-art landfills we have across the country. We do renewables, we do recycling in the City of Fargo. It is the goal of all the managers to look at more efficient ways, better ways of doing things. Everybody in the City of Fargo pays a forestry fee, and in the forestry fee, we look at different ways to add more trees, to add more greenery to our space. If you look at the Fargo project out by the YMCA, we're looking at different ways. We have drainage ditches all over, but is there a better way of doing drainage ditches? Is there a way of retaining water and using it in an ecological way? So we look at all those different things, and the City of Fargo is very committed in the climate change to decrease our footprint as City of Fargo. And some of you asked the question, and this is a great question, is what do you want the City of Fargo to be going forward? And John and I both have that issue, is that we want a sustainable city that does the most to look to the future for our children and our grandchildren. And we want to be an example for the nation. So thank you all for coming today, and I appreciate your time.
On your way out, if any of you would like to grab my business card or go online, fargond.gov, shoot us an email, drop us a line, remind us that you care, that you show up and you stand up, that you speak up, and that you're expecting us to partner with all of you with action going forward. It's really important that this isn't just a show of words, but it's an embarking on a new journey that is everyday new challenges and new opportunities. Before we're done, I'd like to acknowledge a couple folks I see. Senator Merrill Pepcorn in the audience. Are you still here, Merrill? He was here. And also a representative from District 27, Ruth Buffalo. Would you stand, please? It takes all of us to move forward and to do what we need to do. I can say this unequivocally. I'm so honored by our younger generation's voice, and I'm so impressed with their heart. And it's so important that we listen to the kids coming up and that we're paving the way for their future. They're being very clear with us, their expectations and their hopes. And it isn't the time to debate whether they're right or wrong, or whether there really is the impending challenge that some say. What really matters is that day by day we do what we can to improve our planet, improve our space, improve our environment, and improve our own circumstances. That's what matters. And we have that chance to do that locally. We can do it all the time with each other and as partners with leaders and with the community across the board. So it's all of us, folks. There is nobody that's right or wrong. We'll be wrong if we don't make it right. That's where the onus is on our shoulders. So that you showed up today, that you speak up, that you're letting us know on a weekday over noon hour that you care enough about this issue to show up in City Hall and be present and presence yourself and advance these issues. Let's give each other a round of applause and thank you. On that note, we'll wrap up today's town hall meeting, and we appreciate your all being here.